Hello everyone. I got asked a couple times to make a tutorial on how I did this shot here. And so let me just walk you over the script. This is not going to be a step-by-step tutorial. I'm more talking generally concepts so you get an idea. So let's start. First of all, the first thing I really did was animating a sphere. So I have a sphere just animated with 4 keyframes. That's really just it. And then I parented an axis to the sphere. So you can see the animation curve here. And the sphere is running along this path. To make it a little nicer, I used some random nodes. So these are just generating random numbers. And what I did is I linked those values to the sphere. So I made an expression here and plussed the random curve that comes from this random node on top of this, so that I get a path that's a little more interesting, and so my rocket is doing some wiggle motion during the movement, which just makes it look more natural. And this axis is really the important thing here. I'm feeding it into a reconcile, and I parent the reconcile to the camera, so I get my 2D position from that. And with that, I'm starting to work. So the base of everything is footage of multiple fogs that I merged together, just a bunch of fog assets in different sizes to get the density I wanted. And now what I'm doing, I'm using this fake sun gizmo. It's a great tool. This is the guy who made it. I don't know if I can say his name right, so I'm just not gonna attempt to. And this is really just giving me an exponential light. And I parented it to the reconcile, so it is moving across this path. And to make that one a little nicer, I used another random number generator node just to give it a flicker. That's the base. And then I'm starting to bring in the fog. So I have this fog asset here. I cut off the bottom part, and then I multiply it with this fake sun gizmo. And what that gives me is some interaction with the fog when it's moving. And I did this multiple times in different shades. So I have a brighter sphere in the middle, which is more towards the right, the white colorish spectrum, and then multiplying it again. And what really helps this whole thing here is this relighting tool I made. So let me show you. So I have this fog, but I wanted to relight the fog based on the position of this light. And this is what this node is for. It's also available for download. It's on my YouTube channel as well. So this one is just parented to the same curve, and it's really just creating edge lights on top of the fog asset. So when I multiply this, you can see I get kind of a fake 3D effect on the fog. And I combine that with all the smokes that I created already. So I'm just multiplying that again, and then I'm plussing the smokes. And this way I'm getting this 3D effect on top of the fog, so that we get the feeling the fog is actually lit by this light source. And yeah, I like this. This is really the thing that makes it believable, in my opinion, here. And then I added some more stuff. Yeah, so I take this whole thing and I grade it down to just have that spot. Then I multiply it with some noise to break it up into a lot of different brightness values. And then I just blur it in with a lot. So I get kind of a lens flare. And the noise is just there to break it up, so I get some areas that are less dense here. Then I recolored it because the lens I like to shoot on is creating a blue lens flare, so I tried to mimic that as much as I could. And then I plus that over, and ta-da, here we get a blue lens flare. Yeah, and then I just added more instances of that light with different fogs on top, and that's already the rocket itself, I would say. Then I have a background image, which you can barely see, it's just some clouds and the moon, and I'm adding all that stuff on top of it. I also have a fake blue light here on the left side, which is just like mimicking there's something going on the left. I was imagining a street lantern being over here, so I have some other fog color here just for contrast. So I'm bringing all that together, so I have my blue light and the rocket itself with a lens flare. Okay, then we go into this part. So this is the first flash when the rocket explodes. So I have just made another instance of all that I did here again. Only thing is that I tinted it white and made it very bright just for one frame. And this merge is just animated to be visible on that one frame to give a bright flash. Okay, then let's go into the particle work here. The first thing I animated is a particle trail that is following the rocket itself. I used the sphere for that, which I gave the base animation. So it's really simple. You take a particle emitter and you connect the emit input with the sphere. So now, where is it? I lost track. So that the sphere itself emits the particles. If you have fast motion like I do with the sphere, you will see that stepping here. So every frame it generates, like it emits particles. And to make that a little better, you can use a particle settings node. And this will basically add more substeps between the frames. That means that you get a more uniform emitting of the particles, and you get a proper trail and not this steppy emission here. So I just made multiple instances of different amounts of particles, and all of them move different. Here I added the turbulence just to spread the particles out more and that they get some swirly movement. Here the same, just in a different way. And when I add those together, I get 3 different particle emitters, and it's just adding more dynamic and variation to everything. So this is the trail. Then I gave it some post-processing. I dropped the saturation a bit and tinted it a little green like the flare itself and gave it a little exponential glow to finish it off. And then with everything combined, we have the trail and the smoke. Now let's get into the rocket itself. I learned a very nice trick here, which I'm going to show you now. So let's view it. This is just a pure particle simulation for the Firework itself, and it's built of multiple parts. Let's start with the first part. So I'm going to connect that here. The first thing I did is I'm taking the same sphere from here, and I'm using that sphere to emit from it. The very important part about this, which makes it look nice, which makes it look like it's an actual firework, is that in the emitter I set the emitting to points. Otherwise, if I don't do that, like normally I emit from phases most of the time, so that means that the particles get emitted randomly across the surface of the sphere, and then you get a very random look. But I wanted this trail, this typical trail that you get on fireworks. So if you set this to points, every point, where's my sphere? Every point will emit in its normal direction. So this point will emit from here, this from there, and so on. So you get this typical firework, like geometric shape that the particles are being shot out. And then in the emitter, it was really just emitting the emission, so that now we get a lot of emission, and now the emission lowers, so we get just one burst of particles shooting out. So this is the base. And then the next thing that is, this is the trick I found out, is that I wanted to emit from those particles here, I wanted to emit new particles so that every of those leaves a trail that points towards the center. You can technically connect and emit input from an emitter to that whole emitter stream, but then you crashes for some reason. So what I found out is that you can just use a particle to geonode. I lost my scene again. So when you use a particle to geonode, it will convert all those particles into actual geometry. And if you leave the node by default, it will do that for every frame. And this way, you can just use that entire stream here as geo that's already existing and plug that into the emit input of a new emitter. That means that the new emitter will pick up those points that I created here and emit from them. And what you get then, let's connect one of those, is, you can see that the particles, the first ones that I created, just the single points, they're shooting out and now leaving a trail of new particles that I emit from a second emitter. And here I just did the same. I animated the emission rate to start later on so that we cannot see the center of the sphere, and starts emitting a little later. And then I let it emit to this point, and then I just animated to not emit anything anymore. So I get these trails that follow the main points and then just die out. And then I just made multiple instances of that with different spread values. And here, for example, I added a strong turbulence that just spreads out the particles over time, so that this trail is not staying intact and instead it gets broken up over time. And I have one more instance of that with a lot of less particles and more random and a different color, and one more with just a different turbulence. And if I layer all those up, I get already multiple particle trails with different colors, different sizes, and a lot of variation here. Then I added another layer of particles, which is very few, but they are very turbulent and a distinct different color, just to add some life. And what is this? This is just more particles with very different shape. And with all of them layered together, we get a very, very rich particle simulation. And then I'm doing some post-processing of them. So first of all, what I do always to particles, I apply some blur, because even with anti-aliasing on, you should always apply some little blur so that they get a little smoother. I just noticed I didn't have anti-aliasing on at all. Okay, happens. Okay, and then what I did, I have this noise, which is just 2D, it's not moving or anything. So I'm just using that noise as a mask input so that I can brighten up some areas based on that noise. So some areas are not going to be brightened up, others are, just to give more variation in the brightness of those particles. Okay, then I tinted that entire thing, as you can see. Give it an orange tint. And then I added some exponential blur, glows on this. And then More glow. Yeah. Yeah, here I wanted to give just the outer particles the strongest glow. Therefore, um, I built the setup. So I created an own channel from that first emitter that I made. So this is the main emitter that just shoots out points from which I'm emitting other points later on. And I gave these particles a texture which is just a constant. And after that constant, I put a shovel node and brought all the RGB channels into a new channel that I created that's called main sparks. And with that, it enables me to get to this, to go to the scanline renderer, and now I will have a new channel here, which is main sparks, which gives me an alpha just for the outer particles. And this one I'm then shuffling out, so I get the alpha from the particles again and got myself a nice mask to do some grading later on. Well, then I dilated them just to make the mask a little bigger, and with that I can apply an exponential glow just on the outer particles and not affect anything else. So what I did then is I created these spots. So when I play this, there are these random spots that are popping up just on one frame and then disappearing. So, yeah, as you can see, they're flickering. So this is really just another noise which is animated to be very fast. And then I'm desaturating the whole firework here, but only in the spots where the noise is. So I'm using the noise as a mask for the saturation node. So I'm desaturating certain parts of that entire firework here. And then I'm adding a glow also with the noise as mask. So I will only get some random spots on the entire thing glowing. And on the next frame, this is going to change because the noise is animated. So I will get a different flicker every frame, and this is creating this sparkling effect. Okay. So with that overt, we have now our background, we have our trail, and we have the firework itself. But what really makes it work is the interaction with the fog, because the firework should be lighting the fog from the inside. And this is what I did here. So I'm grabbing another fog image, fog video here. And what I'm doing, I'm using this relight node again to create a relighting around the center of the firework. And I'm multiplying that with the firework itself. So I boosted the firework a lot and then blurred the heck out of it. And then I'm multiplying it with the relight. And this gives me fog in the color of the firework with some very nice 3D effect on it. And from that, I just made two versions. I made one version, this one you see, and then another one which has only very little blur applied. So I get a very small trail and a very large trail, and I'm just plussing them together, and I get this effect. So, and then here I did just some animation on grades and saturation so that the smoke changes the color over time, because I have a reference video where the smoke actually changes from orange to blue. So this is just 2 keyframes to change the color here. So, and then I lowered the gamma and increased the gain to give some to get some dark spots in here so that we get more detail in the fog. And with that just merged plus, we get a very nice interaction. And as you can see, around the trails itself, we get a more defined relighting of the fog than everywhere else. So then I added some overall fog on top of everything just to give another layer of fog. And lastly, I'm creating another lens flare just for a couple of frames, because when this when the explosion starts, it's so bright in a small spot that it should be having a little lens flare. So I'm taking a luminance key and I create a very ugly alpha from that, and I just pre-mold that entire image by this alpha, and I blur it, but just on width to get another lens flare, and graded the same blue tone that the other lens flare had, and then I'm plussing it over just for these few frames. It's also animated that it's not showing on every frame, so it's coming in here, it's just visible for 2 frames and then it's gone. A little detail, not necessary really, but I like lens flares. Yeah, talking about lens flares, then I'm adding another lens flare on top of everything, which is just visible during the trail movement. Where are we? Yeah, so this is the main lens flare, which is just traveling with the rocket itself. Yeah. I'm using my own custom tool, Arrange Flares, which you can also download from my YouTube. It can just, you just plug in some images from lens flare elements, and then it arranges them for you and moves them in a way like a lens flare would move. So it renders, as you can see, I have multiple instances of that node, and it's still rendering quite okay-ish. It's not super fast, but it's faster than other lens flare nodes, so I'm fine with it, and it's free. So I'm adding that on top. So we get a very, very light lens flare on top. And then I'm finishing it off with some lens dearth. So I created this image here. This is a node that creates lens dearth. It's not that nice looking actually. And I plussed another asset which looks good on top just to get some details. And then I'm multiplying it with a very, very blurred version of the rocket itself. So I'm taking the rocket and the smoke. Oh, where are we? Oh, yeah. Yeah, and just blurring it a lot, boosting it a lot, and then I multiply it with the lens dearth so that I get interaction when it moves, and it's revealing the dust on the lens. And this I plus on top of everything, and this way I get these little lens dots showing up everywhere. Just makes it feel more alive. And then I'm finishing it off with some lens distortion. I'm adding lens distortion anamorphic, so it squeezes outside, and then some grading, some chromatic aberration, grain, vignetting, and that's it. Yeah, please ask me questions if I was not unclear. I've never done a video like this, so I hope you can learn something from it. Okay then, have a nice evening.